Okay, welcome Pallavi
Thank
to
you for
the
having me
episode
here.
of Tangents and Truths, which is the podcast that we are getting into. Yeah, so we'll keep it very, very informal.
Sure.
There is, and I don't know anything about the current job that you have, so we will go through that in detail. But I know you from a long, long time ago. But it'll be best if you introduce yourself, and then we will go into tangents and uncover some truths along the way.
Sure. So I'm Pallavi Nayak. I live in Bombay, born and brought up here. I am an advertiser by profession and a design thinker. I've spent 20 years in the industry, most of it, a good part of it in OBV, and then some design firms and some other agencies, like most of us do.
Hmm.
Had a amazing, very good career. And then around 5 years ago, I decided to kind of do a complete shift and transition into politics. And I worked with the Indian National Congress. I worked with their training department for around 4 years. Now I kind of head strategy and organization engagement for All India Professionals Congress. So that's where
Wow.
I am. And
So
I have a very sweet family. I live very close to my parents, which is a great joy in my life. I like to add that in my introduction. And then I
perfect.
have my partner, my son, and that's my life.
Great, great. So the two big inflection points in your career. One, what made you get into advertising in the first place? Like I remember I was seeing some random ads and I said, damn, I want to do those kind of ads. And then I was thrown into Ogilvy and I had no clue what the hell am I doing. But what brought you into advertising in the first place?
Uh, I think it was an ad competition when I was 15 when I got into college. I was 16, yeah, of course, 16 when I got into college. That's
Hmm.
junior year, and there was an ad competition, and I
Wow.
participated in it, and I just knew that I want to be in this industry. There were a
Hmm.
couple of seniors who were already working, like people
Hmm.
who had just passed out from my college who were already kind of at a very young age making waves in advertising,
In creative, they were
in creative they were. And so I decided, and I didn't know there was any
the
other
departments.
department.
Yeah.
So I remember my first poster I had done as an ad competition was Tarzan the car, right? And you had to make a sales poster, right? I remember doing that, and then I ended up being co-heading the ad club for that college.
Wow.
By the time I was in the last year, which is the final year,
Hmm.
TY BCom. And then for me it was like I knew I wanted to be in advertising. Like there was nothing else. So I kind of did a course at XIC, but that was just because I just wanted
The
to
masscom.
desperately work. Yeah, their masscom, particularly advertising also they have within masscom.
Hmm.
And yeah, and that's how and then I realized that there is something called as strategy, servicing, and servicing itself was not, that strategy was not so big as a department itself. There was
Right.
business, which is servicing. And so I joined servicing because some logic you put at that time saying that I can be creative in my life, in my way of work. I don't have to make it my job. But strategy, research, all that also appealed to me a lot.
Right.
And that's how I joined. But my first true love was movies actually. And I thought this was such a nice
Movies.
adjacent to it. And yeah,
But like directing or acting.
all of it, I guess.
Okay.
I love the entire idea of filmmaking. I have
Hmm.
dabbled with improv, stand up, and being on stage, which I quite
Wow.
enjoy. But the thing is, I prefer the entire making of it, right?
Hmm.
So, yeah. So, but it fascinated me a lot. I've grown up a movie buff, but this was a nice adjacent to it and something that I could easily get into, and that's how I was in advertising. And getting into movie industry was just like a myth. And how do you get into it? Was like a fantasy,
Yeah.
right? Being in Bombay, it was still a fantasy because being South Indian family, you just have to work, like and not.
Yeah.
So a similar thing, yeah. So that's how I got into advertising, and then I think then it's the advertising industry which kept me in advertising. I'm one of
Hmm.
those people who did not skip to marketing at any given point of time. It never interested me. Never.
Yeah.
Like
But did
my,
you like what was the main barrier for you to not go there?
I didn't want to. It
Definitely the
just
money
looked
was not
very.
enticing enough.
The money was great, I'm sure, but then it just seemed very boring to me because I remember
Yeah.
my first question in at Low. That's where I interned actually from
Hmm. Hmm.
college, and they asked me, "Why do you want to join advertising?" I just said that that's because every few days I'll get to work on some different category that will be so much fun. And I think till
Right.
date that is what I enjoy about advertising. And this whole marketing just seemed like for 5 years, 6 years, 10 years work on the same category, matlab chai, biscuit. I mean, I
Hmm.
can't do that. I and then
Yeah.
yeah, and advertising was just too much. It was just a nice mix of everything that I wanted in life, so
Hmm.
enjoyed
Hmm.
in life. So,
So no regrets along the way.
not major ones, not major ones. Of course, things could have been gone.
Hmm.
Many decisions I could have made at certain points of time, which I think would have changed the trajectory of my life towards, I don't know, to make it more meaningful and wholesome, but
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
really very big ones. I have thoroughly enjoyed advertising, and I guess after a few years, couple of years that I stopped enjoying advertising, I got out of it.
So,
So
but what was the reason that you stopped enjoying it?
I think the industry still is very much needed, and it has
Hmm.
a value in society. And I just feel that there is no what do you call, there's no importance given to craft anymore and to
Hmm. Hmm.
nuance anymore and to
But
the
is
only
that
thing is
because
deadline.
there is no time?
Yeah, there's because deadline is everything,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And so then the culture becomes that you kind of attract that kind of people. You know, you are you're just pretty much trying to save money in every which way possible as an
Hmm. Hmm.
organization,
Hmm.
including counting toilet paper, how much you're spending on that, right? So I mean, that is what it is. So
Yeah. Yeah.
when you're discussing how much can we save on the wooden spoons that we kind of offer in the
Correct.
canteen, where is the time to say that how do we kind of up the creative
Hmm. Hmm.
narrative, or how do we kind of stand up to the client and just say that take it or leave it. And so yeah, that's what. And then I guess there was a time, I think, that happened when the networks took over in a big way.
Hmm. Hmm.
And because the point being, if the person who doesn't own it
Hmm.
doesn't have to face it,
Right.
the everyday,
Grind.
how do you
Yeah.
say, decay of the industry, and doesn't have to see it, right? Then
Correct.
they don't care for it, right? Then you are just a
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
And the people who now own these bigger agencies, who set
Hmm.
the template for rest of the agencies, are owned by people who don't live here. So there is,
Correct.
and no matter how much ownership people who run it here have,
Hmm.
right? They
Hmm.
are still just, how do you say, they are also numbers. They are no
Correct.
matter how big their names are, no matter how many awards they win, no matter how many award functions they are called for, judging, they all that, the
Yeah.
theater of advertising, no matter how romantic that looks,
Yeah.
if the owners are not sitting here, you are just a number, right?
Yeah.
And
To
then
to
that
use
trickles
the
down.
new term, you're fungible or
Yeah,
you're
fungible,
expendable.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, and yeah, exactly. So
Hmm.
that's it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And so what made you move to where you are right now? Because I think that's going to be a big part of this entire podcast. Because I
Okay.
was damn fascinated by that.
Yeah. So I guess since childhood, I was very fascinated with movies and politics, right?
Hmm.
And both have a lot of
But
similarities
like,
in
I'm
it. Yeah.
curious. Sorry, what about politics did you start liking? Because I'll give you my example. I growing up, I only knew two parties, which is DMK and AIDMK, and that was the only two fights. And both of them owned media, owned newspaper, like they were just fighting amongst each other. And then you had this one Hindu that was somewhere in between fighting both of them. So, but all my politics I learned from my dad, and I couldn't make any sense of it. And I thought it's best to stay out of it. So, what made you like politics in the first place?
Because see, I guess since childhood there was a belief, and the belief was because of also the people I was surrounded with, which is
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
family. All of them took very active interest in society, right?
Okay.
Everyone that I know is one of my grandfathers was a freedom fighter, yes,
Wow.
right, in his hometown, and he was the sarpanch of that village for
Hmm.
many
Hmm.
years, and was leaning towards the Congress party because, like most freedom fighters, were
Hmm.
very
Hmm.
Gandhian. He was actually the Gandhian. People say every
Wow.
village had a Gandhian. He was that
Correct. Correct.
Gandhian in the village, right? So that was my grandfather back in my hometown. My grandfather here was an extremely disciplined, honest, what they call cop,
Hmm.
right? Working
Right.
with the prohibition department here in Bombay, and but they were very active, including my grandmom, my mothers, my aunts, uncles, their
Hmm. Hmm.
parents, my aunts and their parents. They were all very working towards building the society. This entire thing
Right.
called Bharat Nirman, right, which was a big
Hmm.
phase.
Hmm.
And I feel that they believed in the power of social activism. They believed in the power of getting things done. They believed in justice. They believed in what's happening should not, if it's bad, it should not happen, and we should raise our voice, right? And they did it
Hmm.
in their
Hmm.
own small ways, some of them in big ways, but they did it, right? And I've grown
Right.
up seeing that. I've heard stories of people in my community doing that. And
Hmm.
so these are the things that I grew up with. And also the conversation of politics was very much dining table
Part
conversation.
of
So
your. Hmm.
everyone was always aware who is the MP, who's the MLA. So they are all talking about it. So for me, politics was never from the point of corruption, but from the power point of view of what power it has to bring social
Hmm.
change, right? That is the
Nice.
lens I've always seen it with, right? And I've always seen that if people put effort, things change. Now, you can either
Hmm.
grow up thinking that no matter how much effort you put, things might not change because the system is corrupt. But I
Correct.
grew up with that belief because of this environment that if you put
Hmm.
effort,
Hmm.
things will change no matter how bad the situation. So
Hmm. Hmm.
politics then became a big canvas for me to
Hmm. Hmm.
enter, where probably now that I've had a great career with advertising and all of that, um, it was always on the back of the mind that I should get into politics. But again, it was same like the movie industry. How do you get into politics? Yeah, it's like saying, how do you do that, right?
Correct.
And I've said this before many times to people. Like it's like saying that I want to, मैं माधुरी दीक्षित बनना चाहती हूँ. Like
Ah,
how do
correct.
you enter politics when you don't know anyone in politics? But I did
Yeah.
but then in 2019 when this government came to power again, and which
Hmm.
doesn't kind of align with my values and my view of the country. So I said that maybe we should just get into it. Like, how do you do
Hmm.
that?
Hmm.
So one of my ex bosses put out a thing saying there is some course happening. I kind of did a course with Indian School of Democracy,
Okay.
and for me it was very clear to join Congress. There was no
Right.
question of any other party, and the values match my
Hmm.
values,
Hmm.
and that's how I kind of then they introduced me to somebody, and then I kind of
So
joined.
this the School of Democracy is something that is open to everybody. How does that happen?
It's open to everyone. They have several programs. I'm very happy
Hmm.
to be their spokesperson or promoter or
Wow.
anything because they are amazing people. They are
So
a young
if
bunch of
people
people.
want to join, that's how they need to go about. We can. I mean, you can.
Yes,
How do you is there a
absolutely.
link or something? Then
Yeah. So Indian School of Democracy.com. You can just type that in, and
okay.
you can just see all the programs. It's all listed there.
Hmm.
Uh, so that's how it came, and one of the co-founders, Himakshi, she kind of introduced me to somebody in Congress, and I was really aligned to their vision of the work that they want to do, and I was
Hmm.
quite inspired to a point where I quit my job the next day, and
So this
then
was
since then,
started by people not in politics
yes,
actively,
yes,
and it was designed for helping
politicians,
people. Okay.
yeah, and I joined a similar program within Congress,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, which
So it was
I started
basically
much
people
before,
wanting to enter politics as electoral politicians
yes.
or okay.
Yes,
Okay.
see, also there is electoral politics and then there is organizational politics. People always
Hmm.
overlook the organizational politics. That is where actually a lot of politics actually happens. What you see is how do I say electoral politics? Let me give you in comparison with this movie
Yeah,
thing, and
please.
since that's turning out to be the theme of the conversation, the parallels between the two. So the electoral politics guys are like the theater of politics, which are the actors,
Okay.
but
Ah,
there are directors, cameramen, lightmen. There's
correct.
an entire machinery production house that runs it,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So the studio, like someone runs
Right.
the studio, right? And that's where all the musician, music director, all those people that you don't see, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
are the makers of it. Like they actually make or break everything. That happens in organizational politics. So there's a huge structure to an organization. There are different
Hmm. Hmm.
departments, different levels and stuff like that. So that is organizational politics. Many people choose to remain on that side of politics.
Got it. Got it. To choose to remain on the organization side.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then electoral, some people switch to
Right.
electoral, some people from electoral come to organizational level.
Mm, mm, mm. And so, just to understand better, so in the organizational politics, in
Hmm.
the context of let's not look at Congress, your party, but let's look at BJP. So you become when you're in electoral, you become the face of politics in that manner
You
and
become the face, you are a representative of people,
of people, right?
not the organization. You're the
Okay, and
representative of people, and so
huh,
you don't need an organization. You don't need organizational politics actually, because you could be a
okay,
one-man party, right? I'm assuming I've not
okay,
read the books. Is there a minimum number of people? I think you can be a one-man party also, like
yeah, I think
independents
so.
are,
Correct, yeah.
right? So you're a one-man party, and then you have an office, right? Now imagine that
Hmm,
office at an India scale level with lakhs and lakhs of people. That office becomes an organization. So
hmm, hmm,
you have to run that organization. You have to have elections within the organization. You have to have different departments looking into different issues,
hmm, hmm,
right? Different cohorts, and
right.
that's a machinery by itself which needs attention. It's like a country that you're running inside the country.
I can barely understand what happens in the society meetings. I don't think there's any way we can do
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that the politics that happen there is the closest that you will possibly get to what happens outside.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I must tell you that then you better be, if you're joining politics, you better be somebody
Hmm.
who enjoys witnessing the society meetings. Because it happens at a large
Why?
scale.
Because are the same uncles coming in, or is it that the
No,
dynamics are very similar?
uncles rule the world, man. You cannot escape uncles. Uncles rule the world. So they are everywhere. But yeah, but there is many other dynamics here. So in every
Right,
party,
right.
yeah.
So you also said you did design thinking. Is that also
Yeah.
something that helps in I can understand while you're doing design, but did you manage to borrow some of that in currently what you're
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about design thinking, I remember, right, like I think 2015,
Hmm.
2012 onwards, design thinking suddenly became something that people spoke about a
Correct.
lot. And
Everybody,
then,
it was a buzzword. Yeah.
yeah, then after COVID, it just went, I guess, somewhere
Hmm.
downhill. And now people don't speak about it as much. So I actually, my ex organization, the MD and I, we actually did a course from Stanford in design thinking. And
Nice.
after doing the course, we realized that this is what we've been doing in advertising for such a long time. Okay,
Why?
which is
Just
nothing.
if you
I'll
can
tell you.
explain to me,
I'll
uh,
I'll
like a
say.
5-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Because it's that simple. So the design thinking is nothing but problem solving.
Okay.
It's nothing but problem
But
solving. If it,
like the customer centric problem solving or some
human centric,
human
customer
centric. Huh.
centric, product centric, you can call it whatever
Correct.
centric, but it's
Yeah.
human centric, right? Solution, problem solution,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Now, in that, and it started because somebody had to teach engineers
Hmm.
how to think
How to
creatively.
think.
Yeah. And then they
Okay.
have this
Okay.
thing of whole brain thinking also in design thinking. I always tell people, I don't know who doesn't think whole brain. Everyone
Yeah.
thinks whole brain. Okay. Maybe over time you stop believing that you can do creative work. Someone feels that I can't do analytical work, but everyone
Hmm.
can.
Hmm.
Right. Now, design
Correct.
thinkers believe that they can do both, and then they are there. Right.
Okay.
Which everyone can do, but design thinkers just come with that belief.
Yeah.
Right. So that is what design. I've oversimplified it for you.
Perfect.
Yeah. Uh, but it is only a little more complicated than this, I'll tell you.
Hmm.
Because then there
Hmm.
are some 4 5 ways. Basically, reframe the problem,
Correct.
do your research. They call it immersion and other words
Hmm.
for it. From that, you do your analysis, and after
Hmm.
analysis, you do your prototyping.
Correct.
right? Prototyping in advertising is just the
Research.
rounds
Yeah.
of changes, okay? But in the nice romantic design thinking world, it is prototyping means you're actually doing experiments, because design thinking is used a lot in product making,
Correct.
service
Correct.
design, systems design, right? So it is
Hmm.
experimentation basically, right?
Hmm.
Doing your whatever tests you have to do and all of that with the solutions, and then finally doing the research with it. And so tell me what we have not done is in advertising.
I think prototyping is the most interesting part of our job, which is writing concepts.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, so I might have for people who really are intense design thinkers, they might
Hmm.
say that you have oversimplified this, and but I'm not
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
engineer, so I don't want to complicate things.
So, but how is that used in your current job?
So,
Like the idea of
yeah.
seeing problems. Sorry. So there are two parts to when you're doing maths. No, the
Mm.
first thing that they say is if you understand the problem, 50% of the problem is solved, right?
Exactly, and that's
So in design thinking, much like this thing, I'm assuming that arriving at the problem statement is going to be the biggest task, right? To figure
absolutely.
out exactly where the problem is and then identifying the solution. So in the organization politics also, is that something that you
Yeah.
face, which is how do you get to the root of the problem?
So that is what it is. So I'm saying that, for example, if I was in the training department, right? So if there
Hmm.
are courses to be designed, if there are programs to be designed, if there are activities to be designed, you have to keep the participant at the center of it, and then you have to design experience. I
Right.
believe there is nothing called as training a politician, because the politician is ready and they come,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
You you at best open them to many experiences and many
Right.
information, facts, etc. But each one of it is an experience, and I particularly took more interest in creating experiences for
Hmm.
in all
Hmm.
these programs, right? And that needs a little bit of systems designing, because at the center of design thinking is also empathy,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
When you do the research, you have to do it with empathy, and with so how do you want this person to feel at the end of the day? What do you
Hmm.
want them
Hmm.
to take out? What is the desired response? So if you
Right.
move from that point of view and design an entire experience for them, and
Hmm.
sometimes we used
Hmm.
to have 30-day programs, right? Sometimes,
My God.
so of course there's a large team working on this. I'm just one
Hmm.
part of
Hmm.
it, but then the part of experience is where I took more interest, and designing those experiences, I think.
So just give me an example of what an experience could be. Is it like him going and facing the crowd, or is it
So it
training
could
on?
be her kind of, no, it's not necessary that also happens. There are parts of
Okay.
it, but even the fact that, mm, the minute they get a call, right, for this
Hmm.
program, like they have been selected, or
Okay.
even before they register also, how should they feel while registering? What is the information they would need? And so
Hmm.
empathize and just putting all of that down, right? And
Okay.
then doing that first welcome call. How should that first welcome call be?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm. Hmm.
How should it make them feel? You have to make them feel, of course, people are putting in a lot of time and effort into this and coming with a lot of hope, right?
Hmm.
So can you give them that, and then enough so that they can come for the next orientation meeting, which many
Hmm.
people don't show up, and then making sure, and then getting them when they come there, how
Hmm.
what are the kits to be ready, how should they be designed, those small things, so that they feel that, okay, this is my place, because it's going to be their space for a while, right? And when you are
Right.
there, getting them to familiarize with the space, you can start with the lecture immediately,
Hmm. Hmm.
or you can make them own the space, understand the space, know the space, right? When they come in, what music to play, when they are there in the middle, where, all these
Right.
experiences, which say a good trainer will, anyways. That's why I feel that people who do their job very, very well apply
Hmm.
design thinking, anyways. May it be
Correct.
a doctor, bedside manner for a doctor is no,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's design thinking, but there is empathy element and a very patient centric approach, right?
Correct.
It is
Correct.
design thinking eventually, right? You will,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So anybody who does their job very well is applying. So a good trainer would anyways apply a lot of design thinking.
Hmm.
So these are just some of the ways. Of course, there are what you call activities where there is a drama training session and etc. So that
Hmm.
then they go to actually a village and they perform that in a close by village. So they get
Okay.
that experience. So that was also there was someone else leading that part of it. But
Hmm.
I'm just
Hmm.
saying that these are the things which kind of give them um, experience. So that's how. Then systems designing is a big thing in politics, because you sometimes have very big campaigns where
Hmm.
you have to
Hmm.
hold people from the time of awareness to registration to after registration,
Correct.
all that entire thing to activity, right? So
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
example, we did a 1 week activity where where participants, whoever registered, had to go in their community and do some activity for the community. So it
Hmm.
could be
Hmm.
Sarva Dharma Pratna, it could be Prabhat Feri, it could be just Swachhata, just
Hmm.
Seva
Hmm.
Seva Dan, right? Shramdan, stuff like that. Hmm? So how do you hold this entire experience for them, and also, uh, you know, from time to time help them at the same time, and sometimes leave them on their own, because it is eventually
Hmm.
their expression, right? So all
Correct.
of that also needs a bit, designing that whole thing needs a little bit of system design
Hmm. Hmm.
understanding, right?
But this is purely for the school that you're doing this thing, or is it at an individual level?
No, no, I was working with Congress training department for 4 years.
Okay, the Congress. So because so the for example the way the
There's a
RSS works.
platform called as Sangam. If
Okay.
anybody wants, they can go and check it out. It's called sarvodaysangam.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is where the all the activities are.
Yep, yep, yep. They have multiple programs. Mm.
Okay. So like one way to enter politics, like from whatever we'd heard, which is you join RSS and then you grow up the ladders and then you can like I'm assuming that was one entry point for you to get into politics. But then at ground level, you learn a lot of the work that happens in politics, right? So let's say you're a youth congress and you understand what is happening. So at college level, I'm sure there's elections and you're joining these kind of politics, like the way they showed in that movie Yuva. But for the people that let's say you're talking to, do they have that? Do they need to have that kind of an experience? Do they have that kind of an experience before they're
Yes.
getting into these kind of programs?
See, most of the people that we work with, as in what we have interacted with, are all grassroots politicians already. Most of them.
Okay.
All of them, right? Sangam's objective is, if you go to the website, you will see, is to develop the kind of politics which is
Hmm.
towards the people's politics, and the constitutional politics, which is about doing transformational work for the society, and
Hmm. Hmm.
issue advocacy and stuff like that, right? So that is one way of getting into politics. Rather, that is the best way to get into politics, which is to start doing groundwork, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
most people think that politicians are these people that we see, MLAs and MPs, right? They
Hmm.
are like saying that Indians are the ones who, I don't know, are in Bombay, for example,
Hmm.
right?
So a
But
small
it is,
person. Yeah.
yeah, it's just a small percentage, right? People who can you see, right, upfront. But there are
Hmm.
lakhs of politicians. Remember, there are 5 lakh villages. That many politicians are there in those panchayats.
Correct.
Zilla level, there are people. District level, there are people, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
there are, of course, at state level also, there are multiple departments in which people do a lot of work, right? So, given all
Hmm.
of that, there are several politicians. Like I told you, I would say that electoral versus organizational, I don't know, 1:10. It's a random ratio I'm giving you, but it's that
Hmm.
big a
Hmm.
ratio. It could be bigger than that. So that many
Right.
people are there in
Right.
organizational politics who actually do a lot of work on ground. Lots
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
lots and lots of work on ground. Some of them might have electoral ambition, and
Hmm.
some not. So actually speaking, a lot of people come from on ground only, and they come through multiple, like through IYC, which is Youth Congress, through Mahila Congress, through Seva Dal, through
Hmm.
RGPRS, which is an amazing organization in Congress, Rajiv Gandhi Panchayat Sangathan, right? And right now, for example, what I'm working on is Manmohan Singh Fellows Program, which is
Hmm.
another way for professionals to get into politics. So it's a program that
Oh,
we
okay.
recently launched, and it's still up. The registrations are still on. Professionals can apply to it,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And whoever has decided to kind of commit themselves to politics, it is a
Hmm.
fabulous way to get a lateral entry into politics, right into the heart of politics.
So just give me an example.
Mm.
If I want to, if I were to join that,
Yes.
do I need to have prior experience? Like, am I joining it? Am I joining that program for within? Like, do I need to have something within my area for me to be accessible to certain things? Like, how do I put anything in practice after I do that?
So, because the program is that you will be working with a mentor. So,
Okay.
for about a year, you'll be working with a very senior politician
Mm-hmm.
in their office, of course. Or when I say office, it means with them, whatever assignments are there.
Okay.
So you
Okay.
get
Shadowing them
hands-on knowledge,
almost. Hmm.
shadowing them. You get hands-on knowledge about uh, the work, and we are. It is open to mid-career professionals and seniors, which means that
Hmm.
they have the maturity to pick things up very quickly. And
Quickly.
we are also
Right.
looking for only 50 people, and currently almost 1,000 people have already applied.
My God. Hmm.
So if 50 people we need, so they will be people who are definitely committed. Just the way, right? I thought I found my ship when I met this this person who I wanted to work with, and next day I quit my job, and then I've been here for five
Right.
years, right? So there are many people who want to shift in that way. They just don't know how to do it. So
Hmm.
Manmohan
Hmm.
Singh fellowship program becomes that
Hmm.
fellows program becomes that channel for
But
them.
there's very limited awareness, no, Pallavi, on this thing. See, because the like
Yeah,
I'm
my
in the other aspect of politics is always immoral or corruption and bad and stuff. Not we have very little awareness of the
all
fact
of this.
that yeah, and also the fact that politics for good
Hmm.
is also not something that is usually spoken about, but it's also that comes to life only when you go to, let's say, some gaon conversations. That
Hmm.
it's almost like the basics that needs to be done right, as
Yeah.
opposed to the driving force of how humans are supposed to live. The whole idea behind politics and
Yeah.
democracy was the power to the people, right? And it can
Yeah.
only happen for if things are going in the right direction. Also, politics has also been used as a tool to control people as opposed to bring people up.
Hmm. So,
So yeah, so I felt that the positives aspect of politics is not, I don't know, it's not out in the media as much as it's that it ought
I
to be.
agree. I agree.
So
It
where do you think, like how can that happen? Like, isn't that part of the organization also, that make it a little more prominent, or is it something that because within that within that, wherever it is that all this training is happening, there's enough and more noise that you feel that organically it's going to grow in the right direction?
So no, that's a very very good question, and that question leads to actually. I was initially smiling when you asked this question, is because you started by saying, but there is no awareness, and that is exactly what my chairperson says. My chairperson has been telling me every day, saying there is no awareness about this program. Why is it not reaching people? But that's a
Right.
communication
Correct.
thing. But the point is, on a larger note, and seriously, what
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
asked for the question, it's a very very important question, and it's about politicization of people. People feel that they are politicized, but
Hmm.
I know the difference of what being politicized is and what it is not, because I've seen my, say, people from my grandparents' generation, my parents' generation, who
Hmm.
were politicized, which means they knew certain issues that are there in the society. They
Hmm.
knew that they have to participate in politics, and that's the only way politics will happen. Which means
Hmm.
politics is not going like to going to a gym. Sorry, not going to
Right.
a hotel. It's like going to a gym
Hmm. Hmm.
or a hospital, which means that you will have to pay the gym also,
Correct.
but you'll have to work out also.
Correct.
Versus going to a hotel where you say that I will just
Services
go there
provided to you.
and services
Hmm.
is provided to you. Today, politics has become very service. But that is fine if you're in, say, a communist country,
Hmm.
or if you are in a country where there's a monarch,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? That's fair. That is what will happen. Like in Dubai, you can expect that. China, you can expect that. But we live in
Hmm.
a democracy. Democracy means the country is run by people and their
Right.
representatives. So people have to participate in politics. And that's
Hmm.
when this system works. So you can't now say just because I'm, and what has happened now is we've been told that, oh, but you give us, because it's convenient for politicians to say, you give me tax,
Hmm. Hmm.
okay, and we'll take care of you,
Correct.
right? It's exactly how what happened to advertising. Give me commission and we'll take care of you.
Correct.
It doesn't work.
Hmm.
right? We need your participation. We need people's participation in it. So, in that sense, people stop paying attention to politics.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when people stop paying attention to politics, of course, anybody who wants to grab power will say, okay, fine, then I'll run it for you. Even the good people will say, I'll run it for you. The bad people will say, yay, I'm going to run it by myself,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And when they start doing that, they start capturing media, all other institutions, which would have been at least been a channel towards telling you that, hey, something wrong is happening.
Right.
And they
Right.
have captured everything now. Media is
Hmm.
captured,
Correct.
institutions are captured, every
Yeah.
forums that are there, platforms that are there, which could have told what is actually politics and what is happening in politics, have been
Hmm.
completely
Hmm.
captured. And it's come to a point where it just seems impossible that you can change the flow.
But yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because the thing is that I remember when I was just telling you that movie Yuva again, because that was the first time when not the first time, but at least something that was a little closer, where they said, how politics can be changed for good. But also in Rang De
Yeah.
Basanti, where he says, if you want to change, then you have to go inside and make that change. You can't. It's very easy to stand outside and point. But in a situation where there is so much inertia for change, like I understand that there's a lot of bubblingness and positive and on wanting to make the change. But if the system is not designed for change, right? So because the people who need, like, the whole idea of government and the way that we know it, I might be completely wrong, but the whole idea that it's a bureaucratic red taping that they don't want to change. That's the whole point of it. I mean, and even if you see episodes of Yes Minister, it's basically that it's been designed so that nothing passes through. But so how do you because they themselves anyway don't want to change, they're happy with the way things are running, and the whole idea here is to constantly make those necessary changes, and it can't happen overnight, right? You have to keep chipping away at it. So how long can you keep doing this? And like, what is the end goal? Like, is that the I'm just thinking, do you want, is it the fact that more people need to participate in this? Is it that more people need to be aware of it? Or is it the fact that people are going to be so educated enough that we don't need to go out of our way to make the basics, to explain the basics, right? Then let's take care of what needs to happen. Like it's a little more elevated kind of conversations. Where do you see this 15 years or 30 years down?
So I lost you in the last few seconds, but I got your answer, your question. Sorry. So the thing is that let me go back to
Hmm.
Yes Prime Minister itself, right? Yes Prime Minister, you've seen the show, right? That show was commissioned by Margaret
Yeah.
Thatcher specifically
Hmm.
to move the attention
Wow.
of the citizens to saying that the problem is
Right.
bureaucracy, not the politicians. She
Hmm.
had
Hmm.
commissioned it particularly for that. Around the world, people have made versions. We also had G Minister and whatever
Right.
that version was, right? But it was commissioned by her. So this is
Correct.
what it is, right?
Correct.
The hopelessness is there, red
Hmm.
tapeism is there, but all governments, more or less, have been like that, more or less, always. Why has it come to a point where now it is
Hmm.
unbearable? Why
Hmm.
is it
Hmm.
come to a point where it just feels like we just cannot have any hope or we cannot make any change,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
All governments have, throughout our history, or many other governments also in other countries also, that tapeism and corruption and all has been
Correct.
going on, right? But now it's come to a point where it's like I
Hmm.
cannot
Hmm.
breathe anymore. I'm suffocated as a citizen, right? Now that is happening because of this whole
Hmm. Hmm.
disconnection that is happening. Because I don't even know how you work at any point. Like, for example, how many people know where their ward is? How many people know that where your
Hmm.
closest police station is, which is your police station? And then people will go, if you go to the police station closest to you and they say that actually
Correct.
तुम्हारा police
Correct.
station वहाँ पे है, you question the system. You don't question yourself saying, why don't you know that the geography is such that
Correct.
your police station is actually there?
Yeah, I'm saying
Yes,
even simple thing like even when you're going for your elections, the
exactly.
fact that you don't know
Because
anything about the politician that you need to go vote for, and they keep telling you at least
yes,
vote for the
yes,
guy who's,
yeah. Because
cleaning
we are
the
in a
the road
representative. See,
outside
first
your
we have to
house. At
understand the
least look
country
for
we are
that.
in, right? Then we have to say we are in representative politics, which means that I elected representatives. We are not, but we have
Hmm.
grown up romanticizing this whole US style of doing where I elect the president, right? We don't do that. So right now we are trying to do that. Why?
Correct.
Again, simple reason.
नहीं
I
हो
want
रहा
to
है.
simplify things for me in my head. And that's why the more
Hmm.
complicated everyday life gets, people don't have time to think about politics. So they would
Hmm.
rather outsource it to somebody who says, okay, give me tax, I'll do your
Hmm. Hmm.
running of the country.
Hmm. But is it by design?
Tell me,
I'm just
tell
conspiracy
me one
theory. Is
thing.
it by design that they're making life miserable for you to forget what to question? And like the idea of
I
not
have a
asking the
question. Okay,
questions
human
because you have so
tendency.
much
Okay,
problems on your
why
hand
look at the
already.
country? Let's look at a house. How did patriarchy come into play?
Ah.
It's because a lot of people. You would ask why did the
Hmm.
man become the head of the over that too for 10,000 years? Why has man become the head of the thing? Why has nobody
Yeah.
questioned this? And then the question is that is this systemic? Of course. And is
Correct.
it deliberate? Of course it is deliberate, because the tendency is that if you're going to let me take power, I'm going to take power. And then people say, but no, it is not a systemic
Hmm.
thing, it's an India thing. Because look at Singapore. Then Singapore is a very different country. It's like running dead. It's a new country,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
we are also quite
It's a
new.
very
But
new
I'm
country
saying,
also, right?
but I'm
So.
saying it's like, but as a civilization,
Hmm.
we've been there for much longer. But it's like saying that I'm going to run NCR. I mean,
Correct.
of course, you'll be able to run NCR very well, yeah. That's the population, even
Hmm.
with the population of NCR, right? You will run
Hmm.
NCR very,
Hmm.
very well. You'll run Delhi.
Correct. But I don't think the problem
It's
is
one of the, it's
population. While
one
that
of the
might be the
definite.
key,
Tell me one
one
thing.
of
You have
the
to put 10
ideas of
people
this
in
thing. But
make them stand in a line. You have to put not 100, you have to put a lakh compared to 10.
hmm.
Yeah. So of course, it's going to
Hmm.
get
Hmm.
complicated. That many variables increase, right? Population
Yeah.
is also a variable, and that variable also keeps that
Correct.
changes, right? And that's like a very large,
Hmm.
that also matters. Okay. Plus our way of thinking, Indians are fatalistic. Culturally, we are very
Hmm.
fatalistic.
Hmm.
We don't we vote people for intention. We don't vote for
Hmm.
outcome. You would have seen this in advertising. We use this behavior quite a bit, right? Like how Indian
Correct.
thinking versus Eastern thinking. We are very fatalistic.
Yeah.
So we are
Yeah.
also saying, okay, that person is promising, no, at least that person is trying, no, let's give 10 years, let's give 20 years, right?
Hmm.
And it just suits us. And imagine the kind of philosophy. I don't think ahimsa could have worked anywhere else. Or this whole no cooperation movement. And then wow, no, I don't have to work,
Hmm.
man.
Hmm.
That's amazing. As an Indian, it's like, bring it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, bring
The
it.
Japanese must be wondering what the hell is going on there. We
Yeah,
are doing, I don't know,
ahimsa
since
also, it's very smart.
time
Like,
we are
I'll
doing
also
the
not get
opposite.
hit. It's good, yeah. Just I'm safe. I'm just, oh, of course, again, being, I'm just, whatever,
Yeah.
saying this in zest. These are all major concepts and, great campaigns, this thing. But all I'm trying to say is that there's the cultural
Correct.
context to India. There is also a political context to India, also the diversity that we
Hmm.
have, right? And the fact that we are a new country, okay,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
I don't think like the right wing politicians like to hear that, but we are a new country, right? And many other our population size, right? Our
Hmm.
own the whole social structure, the caste system, the and the gap that's there, the wealth gap that's there, the
Hmm.
gender
Hmm.
disparity that's there, right? Regional disparities, all these things
Hmm.
are there. And then the current flows, which is the consumerism, which the entire world is facing. As consumerism is rising,
Hmm. Hmm.
capitalism is rising, right wing politics is rising.
Correct.
And right wing politics is capture, full capture,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? The extreme
Hmm.
the both the extremes want to capture the extreme left and the extreme right. Their politics, the approach is capture, right? So then, and but we have grown
Hmm.
up on values of what? Of centrist thinking.
you could be a right-wing voter or whatever,
Hmm.
but this
Hmm.
country has grown up over 3-4 generations on centrist thinking because the constitution is set like that, right? We've heard those Sara Bharat Ye Kahe Prem Ki Ganga Chaliye. If we have this right wing politics right now, which is at the center, right? But the point is that
Hmm. Hmm.
as a generation, we have grown up on centrist values, no matter what it was at home, right?
Correct.
In general, we have been a socialist
Hmm. Hmm.
secular country for the last 2-3 generations. So the mainstream has been talking about it,
Hmm.
right? So it has influenced this entire generation, even if they today vote
Hmm.
for it, right? So somewhere that conflict is there in the
Hmm.
mind, no
Hmm.
matter what, and those two things are conflict. And also, we have to remember that why I see that we should
Hmm.
not lose hope still is because a society's job is to experiment, which means that it society as a whole, as one organism,
Hmm.
if you call India as one organism, would want to experiment also, right? Okay, this idea is not working for me. There is a gap. I don't like it. I'm done with this. I
Hmm.
want to try something new. And in politics, there are flows. The flows go on for 15,
Correct.
20
Correct.
years, right? And in those flows, yeah, so it's
Hmm.
there. So
Hmm.
I know this is precious 20 years of our time, our lifetime. But the point is that that is
Correct.
how
Correct.
every generation has gone through big, big flows of political power.
Hmm. The other question that I wanted to check, Pallavi, is see, while there might be two big parties that are trying to come in power, right? So forgetting that, but going back to the point that you made on that the power of politics is the ability to make change happen for the good, right? Now, is it important, therefore, for people to understand the process that is going behind for the change to happen? So, see, because both parties have like there's a
Yeah.
youth congress, there must be a youth wing for BJP. So, the programs that you have for the Manmohan Fellowship kind of a thing will similarly be there for the BJP wing, right? So, fundamentally the stuff that is being done might be same. So it's almost like two brands offering very two similar kinds of stuff, and eventually the end output is similar, right?
Yeah.
Isn't
So
that
I will.
the whole point of what both are trying to solve? It's just that the way that they're doing it
So
is
I'll
might be
I'll tell you
different,
this
but
thing. So the
aren't
thing
they
is that
both trying to
firstly,
solve the same thing?
like the other party, they don't have this whole professionals thing and the Manmohan Singh thing, but that's a separate thing. But coming to this, okay,
Mm, mm,
uh, that's why it's very important in politics is not of what they are, but how they do it is equally important. Like, for example, there is an IT cell which spread a lot of fake news
okay,
at one
okay,
point of time in the after 2014, and everyone knows that.
correct.
Everyone knows, they also accept everything, right? Now, if
14, yeah.
Congress also says, okay, fine, I'll also put an IT cell, I'll also run fake
Mm,
news, then I don't think we'll be putting any alternative.
mm, mm,
We'll not put it. But we said that we'll do social media, which is a different
correct.
thing. But if you say that we also have to put an IT cell which will do fake news,
Mm,
and we
mm,
will also be, and that's why people blame Congress, saying, but when you
yeah.
send a content, that content doesn't reach the grassroots person. But do you know how it reaches in BJP? It reaches out of complete
Mm, mm,
control and power. It is basically
WhatsApp,
centralization of power, and Congress has
correct.
always believed in decentralization, which means was
Mm,
power to panchayat the most. BJP will soon
mm,
finish
mm, mm,
panchayat system, corporation system. Corporation election in Maharashtra has not happened.
mm,
In Mumbai hasn't happened for so many years now. Corporation
correct.
election has not happened. Imagine. But corporations have to
Corporations,
be there. They are your first, they are like first responders,
yeah,
right? So it's the how of it. So
correct.
there is, you might say that there are different departments. It's like saying there are two houses and they have same number of rooms, and it's a 2 BHK only, and this is also 2 BHK, which means there is a kitchen. Yes, there is a kitchen. There are two bathrooms. Yes,
Mm,
there are two bathrooms. But how does the interior look?
correct.
How are the people who live inside? How are the people who live inside to each
Mm,
other? All that makes a home. And that is the difference between the parties as well. And let me
Right.
tell you, you see these two parties, I strongly believe for Indian democracy, the regional parties are also equally important. So we must not forget those regional parties, and the
Correct.
survival of
Correct.
regional parties is important. Now, what has happened from the time BJP has come to power is that regional parties are dying. Congress is not dying. Congress is here and Congress will remain also, let me tell you. It will remain. Just like India will remain, Congress will
Will
remain
remain.
because Congress is exactly India. Okay. So it will remain.
Correct.
Okay, thoda time lagega, but it will remain. But the point is the regional parties have to survive for a democracy. And BJP is going around like AIDMK gone. Whoever basically, I have this thing. ऐसा कोई नहीं सगा जिसे मोदी ने नहीं ठगा. Okay. Anybody who has become friends with him has got. Mufti from Kashmir, she has got house arrested. Okay. This guy, Uddhav Thackeray here, while he was
Correct.
getting an operation done, he was back stabbed. Mamata Banerjee somehow saved her foot and saved herself and got out of it. AIDMK gone. JDU gone.
Correct.
Your Patnaik gone. Tell me one inside BJP, the people
Yeah.
who were there, right? In Rajasthan and right? These what Scindias, right? What's the name? They are gone. Like these people. I'm sorry, the names are not coming to me suddenly. But thing is that everywhere, whoever they have partnered with, they are all collapsing regionally because of a single thing. Centrist party. It is a centrist party. It comes up to
Centrist.
say that there is one man. That's it. Because that is the approach of patriarchy, to centralize everything. And that is what the party. So there is a huge difference between the two parties. And let me tell you, people see that instinctively because eventually, when we lose election, also we lose by 2-3% only. When they lose, also they lose by 2-3% only. So this country is actually in a
Correct.
safe place where it's not fully gone right wing and fully gone this thing. It's not.
But yeah, the
Who sets the
narrative is
narrative?
that
Who sets the narrative?
it's completely lopsided
Media.
kind of a narrative that comes.
And where is media?
Yeah.
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 Now it's
Which
very
is also run by the
upfront. It's the same. They are
yeah.
capitalistic. Their business partners are running all of it, right? So.
And how important is it for people at let's say at a taluka level or a zilla level? Like these people are the most affected, right? Because they don't have the basics, right? How important is for them to understand the power of politics, and because if they understand the power that they hold, which is if I need something, it needs to happen, and it's going like they're not fighting for some fantasy thing, right? They're not getting clean water, as simple as that, right? So, but for whatever reason, the politics are not making it happen, right? But if they understand the power they hold of making that change, does it start from there or is it a top down thing? See, because people like you and me, we're slightly more educated, we may know certain stuff even though we may not want to understand or whatever, but there's a huge disparity of knowledge and action between them,
So
right? And
I
also
will make a
figuring out, okay,
correction here.
at what stage they
Actually,
are.
the people at Taluka, there is a large percentage of people who know about it, and in cities, people don't know about it. Education doesn't equal to awareness of everything, and education in India has been proved is not is equal to higher awareness of politics for sure, right? Because politics
Correct.
of
No, I'm saying
politics, then,
education
but
purely in
no,
the
I'm telling
context
you, a Taluka
of
person knows
politics.
more.
Like
I'll
we
tell
may
you why.
know
Rather,
certain
our
stuff.
maid will
Yeah.
know more about it. I'll tell you why. Because it affects them.
About who
we are
her
we are
people
in a
are. Yeah.
very sanitized world
Okay.
where unless we step on the road, which is the road that we share with everyone, which is very pothole ridden, uh, very little of water problem, very little of
Correct.
electricity
Correct.
problem. Comparatively, at least in Bombay, there is very little of it. Very little of not getting any
Correct.
resources, nothing. So why will I need help of politicians, right? Very privileged lifestyle, but the person at Taluka
Slightly more
actually knows
privileged
their power
lifestyle that
because
you're
they are
living. Yeah.
very much in touch with their people, and they are very much in touch with administration, and they are in touch with civil society people who are the political activists and everything, right? They still have the thing of Ana Jana. They know They know their power, but what is happening is that power has been being taken away from them. Because if they don't have a right to if they don't have a say itself in certain change, for example, now I'll tell you, Uttarakhand, right?
Correct.
Uttarakhand,
Correct.
if there is some amount of whatever the whole mountain, the rocks that landsliding that has, because there is
Landslides and all.
construction happening, lots of construction happening
Hmm.
there. Now the people who locally don't have a say in what highway is going to be, because it's a
Correct.
highway, no, highway will come under central government. So they don't have any say in that. But that person knows exactly what's
Central.
happening around his
Correct.
house. No? It's the same thing that I told about advertising. If the person who is not sitting there is going to take decision, they're going to take the decision on the basis of some Excel sheet and numbers. That's it. Right? So that's what it is. Now the issue of tribals. Tribals know their politics much better than we know. And they know their power very, very well. And that's why, by the way, tribals are still given so much attention when elections come. Look at it, who are the people that politicians give attention to? It's not just because they are more in number. It's also because they influence politics a lot, which are people from, say, the marginalized section, which are also who are tribals. Also, they would rather come and visit a basti than come to a housing complex, right? Because they know that a housing complex people first, of course, numbers are smaller. That's a different thing. But also they know that these guys, if we try to convince, not convince, also they will decide something that they saw on WhatsApp one day and they'll do, right? They will not do it issue based, right? So issue that that in general, I think. Anyways, I'm not saying that everybody is now even in the basti voting on issue based. They are also going on propaganda. But the point is that at least the tribals and all, they know their issues very, very well. So if, for example, I'll give you an example. When Congress was in power, especially UPA 1, there was a series of right-based policies that were released. Right-based policies. Do you hear of right-based policies now? What are right-based policies?
Okay.
Right to education, right to inform. Which government says that I'll give you information? But they had right to education. Okay. FRA, Forest Rights Act was given, which means, what, a simple thing. There, of course, there are multiple other clauses in it. But the point is that if you have to take some forest land, you have to ask the Adivasis there if we can take that land, because that is their home. Before FRA, that was not needed. That permission was not needed. Now you need. So that's Forest Rights Act. That is Food Security Act. Right to education. I'll tell you, many of the girls wouldn't have gone to school if that had not happened. The last 20 years that the girls have gone to school, or those boys who work on the road, right? Now I can go and put a complaint saying this boy is a boy working here, the boy has to go to school, right? So minimum wages act was not. So these things, right-based policies were released at that time. We don't see right-based policies now. It is about this. So what is that? Apna Atmanirbhar bano. Matlab, you become nirbhar bhai. So also, I don't want to just make it into a comparison. All I'm saying is that look at the politics of it. Right? It's a policy-based thing. Right-based politics. Coming in and saying 33% given to women as reservation at Panchayat.
Correct.
That's a huge change. Full country, 33% given to women, right? These people are still trying to say, okay, I'll give you in parliament, not give you in parliament. Now finally they have passed it, but when will they give it? Do you know, since 2011, the caste census has not been done. The last census was done in 2011. Every single decade census have been done. Advertising, we are suffering. We don't know.
Correct.
Yeah, because God knows
it's almost like he doesn't want it to happen.
Of course, all the theories that they are basing on, all those theories will be out. So that is the problem. The problem is in that you are actually not doing politics and governance. You are not doing governance. You are doing a lot of showbazi, right? And there is very little governance. Governance ke liye you'll have to actually be someone like Manmohan Singh who knows how to read a paper. And you can't say, this man is saying that paper comes to me, I read it like that and pass it on. There are videos of him saying that. Then I thought just look at it like this and pass it on. So I'm saying that you have to actually sit with pen and paper and do work. That is what actual politics and governance is. Working with bureaucrats, working with, it's not one whole, what that, even the internationally we are doing the same thing. Yeah, our international relationships is now based on all one YouTube shorts and one Prabhudeva move and
YouTube shorts.
I mean, that's not how, all those Madras cuts, thug life, thug
Yeah.
life Instagram
Thug
reels,
life,
right? No,
thug
it
life,
can't work like
Instagram
that, right?
reels.
And look at our finance minister. I mean, I
Yeah.
see. I'll tell you what, they are blaming her a lot, but they don't blame the person who has kept her there, right? Who has appointed her there. That person has to be blamed, right? How
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
much can you blame her? You have to blame the person who has appointed her there. And we've had such economists, equal blame to both, of course.
Yeah. I think
But I'm saying
equal
that,
blame to
so
both
that part of it,
eventually.
no,
Yeah.
and that can only happen again if people start saying, and see, also this party came into power because probably there was a gap, right? And that's why they came into power. But so I'm not trying to just
Hmm.
say that anybody who votes for BJP is like just doing it for. Now it is very clear it's for communal this thing, but still,
Hmm. Hmm.
now it's very clear. अभी तो कुछ है ही नहीं बोलने के लिए. But say in 2014, I guess a lot of people
Correct.
out of genuine need for change, they kind of voted, right? They wanted, and they were missing something and everything, which is
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
the country kind of uh, and the citizens and the voters, they kind of how do you say, make their point in a democracy, right? Is from bringing the change and putting that penalty. But
Hmm.
for that you have
So
to be interested, and you can't say that I'm not interested in politics. Now that number is increasing of
correct.
people who say I'm not interested in politics, but politics is interested in even if you're not voting.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't. But I'm saying, how would you go about, let's say, like you said, right? It's not just about what you do, but how you do it, which is much like how advertising also does it. But the thing is, imagine you are in a place where BJP is already somewhat in power at a very grassroots level, right? So you're trying to make the change and you're trying to figure out the change. Now, is the strategy going to be very, very different? Because fundamentally they want the problem to be solved, right? That's the one issue. Now, they may or may not know the how it's getting done. But if somebody is in power, and the only way, like if you look at how market shares grow, you have to steal share from
Correct,
your
correct.
own, from the market, right? You can't, there's no more new people coming in. So how do you go about doing that? Like how not from a political level, but I'm just saying from an organizational politics, because that is where the back end is working, right? That's where the whole machinery is working. So how does that approach happen? One is your own stronghold, and how do you make that a little more lively, and how do you make that a well-oiled machine that can go? But how does that change when you are trying to move or sway? Maybe it's
Yeah,
a fence
so
sitter
I think
or
it's classic
a non-user.
brand building advertising that we do. There is no other approach to it but that. Of course, the techniques might change and the frameworks might change,
Hmm.
but it's roughly the same thing, which is you have to convince them to trust you, and that's it. There is nothing more than that. How do you do that? Of course, the first thing is you have to reach them. So the first thing that a party will say
Hmm.
right now is that, but media is captured. How do we reach? Right? So a very bright young gentleman
Correct.
walked the entire length of this country in Bharat Jodo Yatra, right? And he got what he wanted.
Hmm.
Today, there are more people following him than any other politician. I'm sorry,
Correct.
I've not seen the recent numbers, but he's cut to any other
Hmm.
politician, right? So he is much more. So, and then the eyeballs came in.
Hmm.
Awareness is that. The other thing is, how do you run your own states? And I think, for example, recently we had a policy, gig worker policy, which we launched, right? And Congress always tries to do it through policies only instead of just doing just some
Hmm.
propaganda. Yeah, not just talk. So, and a lot
Not
of
just
the
talk.
new
Yeah.
stuff, that Nirmala Sitaraman launches, has been already done in Nyay. And recently there was Nandan,
Yeah, that's the other thing that I
Nyay,
was talking
fully
about. A lot
Nyay.
of the implementation of the new government has
Yeah,
been the wheels have been
yeah. And not just
moving
that, the
prior,
thing is
right?
that
He's making
Nandan
it look as it's
Nilekani
his own.
recently, just a couple of days back, I heard him say some other policy also came into play that Nirmala Sitaraman did is because a bunch of startups went to Rahul Gandhi and met him, and then they got scared and they say, okay, let's just do this for them now and finish it off, right? So that's how you do it. You do it through policy. You do it,
Hmm.
and eventually, like I'm telling you, there are 33. Probably there are 20% people who are highly communal, and there are 20% of people who are liberals, and then there is this
Hmm.
entire vast majority of 60% who's there sitting in the center,
The vast
and
majority,
who
yeah.
have now, of course, either lost full faith in politics, or so there is a lot of apathy and ignorance. Large part is apathy and ignorance. Maximum number of people decide in the line who they want to, in the line when they stand, and this is a research data, research information, that they stand in the line and they decide who to vote for, right? So should the party now go on an
And they
education
decide.
drive is a question. Of course, that is what we are doing by repoliticization. We do talks like these. We do,
Ideally,
uh,
yeah.
you know, uh, a lot of sensitization. Civil society does that work, right? Some people genuinely come from pain, so they have gone through something, then they see something, and then they
Correct.
switch, right? Because of the experiences they have had. Then, like I'm saying, in your existing states, you do some amount of work such that people say, okay, fine, I like this model now. I'm not such a big fan of that word, like, the Delhi model and Rajasthan model, but that's what people are liking currently, right? People are liking that,
Correct.
and what do they mean by it? So let's not go by this
Yeah,
whole model,
yeah.
model word, but what are people actually saying? Saying that show me in one place what you can do. And now let's see that if we can go around the replicate that. Yeah. Gujarat model,
Replicate
which
that,
now
yeah.
now
Like
it's
even
been
BJP
now
has
it's
that
like
Gujarat
20
model being
years there.
replicated
So
to pan India, yeah.
and those highways have also broken
Yeah.
down, which they showed as the Gujarat model, right? So the point is that so that is what one has
Yeah.
to do, and that shift will happen. Like I trust and I believe in the intelligence and the heart of this country, right? And that shift will happen. But unfortunately, the country is going to go through a lot of pain before that, because we will start suffering for the decisions that we have taken this far. That suffering is, we have really not even started. Now finally that economic thing which Rahul Gandhi has been telling for 10 years now, matlab bol ke, matlab that man has told about
Correct.
COVID. He has predicted so many things that there is an entire edit of him predicting the future. There's an entire video edit of him predicting, and all of it has come true, right? And also the thing is, Congress also doesn't like to put everything in one. Like they like this everything. We have many leaders, right? We have multiple leaders. We
In
have a
one, yeah.
different president. We do proper elections for the president, and of course, then there are PCCs who are the state heads, right? Who take care of the states, and then there are department heads and everything. So in that sense, I would say that everybody does their share now, and I'm not the types who wants to give any advice to the leadership. Like, they are in their place because they know what to do. They know more than, because they've been in this for long.
Correct.
And what I like to, my approach is that the work that you have that I have in my hand, I want to do it very honestly, and I want to do it in a good way. Like that's what I feel, that's how I can contribute. And I feel that if more people do that, there will be a far better change than having to do this escalation of saying, let's take our ideas and give it to that person, one person on top, who will then do it. इनको ऐसा करना चाहिए, उनको ऐसा करना चाहिए, उनको ऐसा करना चाहिए. So this करना चाहिए, होना चाहिए, ये ना चाहिए, I don't believe in that. I'm like, what are you doing about it? That's my question to everyone. What are you doing about it? Yeah, change
Correct.
starts with you. Yeah, for every
Change
single thing
starts
that
with
we have
you.
a reason to not take participate, Gandhiji has given one line for it. How you only have to participate. Yeah. So that's it.
Yeah, but it's damn interesting. See, the other thing also, no, like you said, that there's a huge bank of people who are apathetic to the entire idea of election, politics, right? But the purely from a population skew, right? If almost 70 or 60% of India is in rural areas, which is where you are saying it's far more connected to politics as before, where is the disconnect? Like, where is the apathy coming from? The fact that the people who can make or are closer or who understand politics, are they not? Do they feel that ye zarurat nahi hai, because anyway I'm just barking at a wall and it's not going to do
So
anything
when I
for
said
them?
about the connect, which
Where
means
is
that they know
where
who
is
they
that
are voting for,
40%
I think the
coming from?
person they are voting for. But for them, the apathy comes from saying, but both of them are the same for me. So,
Okay,
yeah,
in the sense like that, is
yeah,
that change that
exactly.
they're expecting not
Regardless of who's in
happening
power, the
regardless
change
of
is
who is
not
in power?
happening. And if the change is
Okay.
happening, it's so marginal, the difference. that they can't make out the difference and they don't care for that much of a difference. They would rather say that I'll not go and vote, or they'll say that, look at the voting percentage. Yeah, it's some
Correct.
60%, somewhere 50%, 40. Bombay, there are places where there's 40%. It's
Correct.
ridiculous how low. That is the apathy. See, the apathy is, the thing is that this government is not a representation of the entire country in the sense that everyone doesn't vote. Oh, so there is probably say that we also have the youngest population in this country. So say that we don't vote also. So
Correct.
there is 7, and
Who
I
don't
don't want
vote?
to blame them. We have given them a country like that they don't feel like voting. Say that 70% of this country votes. It comes under voting this thing. I don't know the exact. Say there's 70. Out of the 70, only 60% votes. Right? Or 50%, 58% or whatever votes. Right? So look at how small it is. Uska 33% highest or 38% highest has gone to BJP at one point. Look at how small it is. If you actually bring down the number, it will be 20% of the country actually. So there is 80% of the country who has not chosen them actually.
Correct.
If you actually look, it will come down to that. So in many, and that's, by the way, that's also true when Congress was coming into power also. Same thing, it worked both ways. That is the percentage that was
Correct. Yeah, it works both ways.
right?
Yeah.
So this whole thing of seeing, the entire country wants, so one it is they are winning by 2-3% or 4% or whatever. That is true. The truth is also is that the whole perception has been captured by media. That is also true. Right? So in many ways, that's why they look like the ultimate winner, like who can never surpass this thing. Yeah, I feel that you just going to bow to them, they might get scared.
Correct. But like, for example, concepts like the blue ocean thinking, or the advertising principles of how the challenger brand kind of a mindset. Do you think those things can
Yes.
work at a time when you have competition that is outshouting you, or out maneuvering you? So, but because see, it's very difficult for a brand like Congress, which is far before anybody else. But in today's, given the situation,
Underdog.
they are a challenger brand, right? And they are currently not in power. But yeah, but we don't, like, at least as an outsider, I'm saying, I don't see them playing the underdog or a challenger card, like. But I feel that if that shift in mindset happens, then I think the change can be slightly more powerful. And I think the while I know that there is a lot of goodwill in the idea that the people eventually will realize, but it's almost cathartic that it's almost like the people are
natural
forced
cycle
to
and
go
natural
through that
cycle ke kya
experience.
fayda hai,
It's
yeah.
almost spiritual in that manner. Yeah, but as opposed to that, it can be
Okay, I get it.
accelerated in a way, as
I
opposed
get
to
that.
organically going
I
through
get
that
that. So
cycle,
now
right?
here's the thing. Okay,
If it can
which is the
push
most
that.
famous challenger brand that at least our generation grew up on? Our bosses told us that, we said that, wow, what a campaign. Which one is that?
Yeah,
Hertz. Yeah, we try harder, right?
Hertz,
Huh? So, and
Avis, yeah,
challenger brand ka agar, if there
correct.
is any positioning or any narrative, one line narrative, it is only that. Is there anything else? We try harder. It can be we try smarter and all, but actually you are
Correct.
saying that we try harder, right? Also remember that the citizens also love that. They are also saying नाच बसंत, जो मेरे लिए सबसे अच्छा नाचेगा ना, मैं उसको वोट देगा, है ना? Which is also true. They are also saying that, especially if you are come to a model where you're saying someone is
Correct.
giving me service and I'm actually not participating in politics. You are just waiting for someone to come and entertain you here, right? And delight you, pleasure you, right? That's what you're looking for.
Correct.
So we try harder. The fact is that it's happening, but at a very, very, I guess, a slow pace, which is the political space. Look at the number of years BJP took to come to power. Number of years that it took, right, to come to power. So they have taken this long to come. They've had other governments, of course, but not at this thumping majority and this with this.
Correct. Yeah.
So
At
they
this
have
length,
come to
yeah.
this power now. So the changes are happening. For example, the Bharat Jodo Yatra was, and people have to see how big that yatra was. the number of people who connected, and also forget everything else. One of the first thing that it achieved, and is the most important thing, is
Hmm.
that the people who work for Congress, the Congress workers,
Hmm.
okay, their faith in Congress got
Hmm.
reaffirmed, which is the biggest thing. Imagine winning your employees back,
Right.
right? It is where 3/4 of
Hmm.
the movie
Hmm.
mein,
Hmm.
when Amir Khan comes in and tells his entire people, like, now let's start again, and then the
Hmm.
whole, Sapna Hai Mera song and all comes, and then people
Correct.
start doing all these very active looking
Yeah.
actors.
I'm just
Yeah,
imagining
Bar Bar Bole Aara. So
Rahul
all
Gandhi
those
having
song
that
happening.
song and
So the
dance behind
Bharat,
it.
so the Bharat Jodo Yatra genuinely
Yeah.
re-energized the party, you know. And if there are, political experts, and
Hmm.
if there
Hmm.
are, genuinely people on BJP route or RSS who really want to understand Congress, would have actually got scared by that. If understood how big that was, if they really, and
Understood
how
where it
powerful
came
it was,
from.
it
Right.
re-energized the party completely. And most importantly, a big
Hmm.
disconnect had happened between the civil society and the Congress party as well. And civil society is, I consider them as the invisible fifth pillar
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
democracy, right? So civil society are the political activists, right?
I have no clue.
So
What
these
is
are the
civil
people who
this
are,
thing?
like, for example, RTI, the Right to
Okay.
Information Act. Of course, Congress party passed it, but who really did the agitation for it, right? It was an
Hmm.
organization
Hmm.
called as Mazdoor Kisan Shakti
Hmm.
Sangathan from Rajasthan, right? Aruna Roy, Nikhil De, Shankar. So these are the people who did it, that
Okay.
entire group. So they are
Hmm.
part of civil society. They are political activists, actually, right? And there are many, 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 several of them working on
Hmm. Hmm.
multiple issues. Someone is working on sanitation workers. Someone is working for women. Someone is working for social justice. Someone is working
Hmm.
for pani. Someone is working. So that entire disconnect had happened with Congress party and politics in general.
Correct.
In politics in general. So Bharat Jodo Yatra actually got them together, because in
Hmm.
every
Hmm.
single area, region that Rahul Gandhi went, every day he would meet some people from civil society, and they saw that faith, and that entire image of Pappu to went away after that, right?
Hmm.
So that was a huge thing. And now with the Nyay campaign, what happened in
Correct.
Lok Sabha? Did you see the result in Lok Sabha? It was an un like they had captured everything before Lok Sabha. The man had started calling himself a god also. It had come to that point. And it
Hmm.
is not a simple thing that a prime minister of the country goes and says that
Hmm.
I'm,
Hmm.
like, I'm like directly connected to God. It is not a simple thing. It is some of the, how do you
Correct.
say,
Yeah.
lethal, fascist of in the world have said such things, right? And it is to that point and that confidence and that control we are talking about.
Hmm.
In
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
control, why we didn't win the election, but we, popular perception, we have definitely won, because everyone rejoiced as if Congress has won. Like, it was a strange thing on that day when the results came. The Congress
Hmm.
party
Hmm.
had more patakas than that party, and actually the Congress voters and the entire country was much more this, because that is all. So the change is happening. I understand it's not happening at the speed that it should, and I understand that it's not also happening consistently. But I strongly believe that the change is happening.
Hmm.
At least in the last 5 years, what I've seen is, because multiple state elections have happened and one general election has happened since I came into politics. And one thing I've noticed is that after
Hmm.
every loss of election, there are more people who call and tell me that I want to join politics and Congress party. There are more people who come. The next day, people call up,
Hmm.
because people feel that want to come and help. So there is a new type of
Hmm.
people who are coming into politics as well, and Congress party. Okay, and there is a sea of change that's happening, right? This whole politics of
Hmm.
money,
Hmm.
muscle, and I had heard M also do it everywhere, which is a man, which is patriarchy actually, right? That control, I feel that,
Hmm.
there are some people at least coming in to challenge that kind of that hegemony of these three: money, muscle, and man, right? This approach in Congress particularly, and I think
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
many ways the leadership is extremely open to challenging these three big things: money, muscle, and man. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. And this grassroots level kind of awareness building on politics and stuff and all, it's also happening at your regional politics also, right? or is it not
Sorry, I
as
didn't get your
powerful,
question.
or
The
is it
grassroots,
not
the
as well
training.
funded? Like, for example, I'm
These are
sure similar
grassroots.
programs are also
Yeah. So the thing
supposed to be
is, for
run by,
example,
let's
the
say, a
regional parties
DMK,
you're
for
saying, no, the
example.
region. See that this is the Sangam platform
Yeah,
is the only training. See, there could be some other types of rate training, which is a 1 day training, 2 day training, randomly done. But this comprehensive effort to do
Hmm,
this
hmm.
training program and consistently for the last 5 years, there is no other party which is doing that. Not even BJP, because they feel that probably they don't need it. No, or maybe they don't need. Yeah,
It
yeah.
can't be
You'll
done.
have to.
Yeah,
You'll have to.
Modi has to
Someone
be
will have to
the
do
mentor.
that, right? So the point is that's only happening in Congress, and that's the Sangam. Yeah. So that's where it's happening. So of course, other
Hmm,
parties should do it, and and I think it will be great to do that. Rather, some of the Sangam programs, people from our Gathbandhan, our coalition, there are people from that the coalition who come to some of these training programs, and then
hmm,
there are other
hmm.
Congress training programs as well. Like there's Indra Fellowship, right? Shakti Abhiyan, that's there, and now there is Manmohan Singh Fellows
Right.
program. So there are other initiatives as well where there is Jai Jawan. There is one
Hmm, hmm,
program that happens. That is both done by Indian Youth Congress. So they have their own
hmm,
training programs, which are long term, like 1 year programs. Like they are long term programs. So these efforts are happening in Congress,
hmm.
particularly because I think somewhere the leadership uh, encourages training and invests in training. Yeah, and there's a will to bring in new thinking,
Hmm,
this
hmm,
which I
hmm.
don't see in many parties.
Right. But also, it's quite surprising, Pallavi, because see, when you look at Congress and obviously it's we as third party, we only come to know of what's happening inside through the content that you consume. And I'm not even taking into consideration that it might be skewed, right? I'm assuming at some point of time that, but even then, the narrative was that there is a a man who seemingly doesn't want to be in power, but is being forced to be in power. There are people who are in the party who've been in the party for a very, very long time, who could equally do his job far better than what he currently may have done, because they have the experience and they have certain things. But because of certain ideologies, they believe that he needs to be in power, and they believe that he has to be in power. And because of that, there's a lot of training and stuff and all that needed to go. But at some point of time, that the machinery could have been far better if there was somebody else in power, and the whole governance could have been gone in a very, very different way. So i- there is a certain kind of a lineage that happens there, but also in the way that the same party acts very, very differently, just because the leader is thought very differently, right? And the whole idea of training that you were talking about, the mentorship, or the idea of how you can train politics. So there is a Vajpayee who was the head of BJP, and then you have Modi, who's the head of BJP. Both have come out from the RSS, so they're cut of the same cloth. But I think the personalities are so different that they become the party themselves, right? At some point of time. So in that case, is what how do you manage the training to the level where you are true to what the party believes in, but you also bring in a little bit of yourself without losing? Like,
So
is
the
that
thing
also
is
a part
that
of
you are
some of the
absolutely
trainings
right, and
that you need to
particularly
go
with
for?
Congress, right? There is all sorts of ideology within Congress. While the overall ideology
Hmm.
has both borrowed and created the constitution, right? Uh, but there are all
Right.
sorts of ideology. You'll see a little bit of right wing people, left wing people. Suddenly, in the in the corridors of Congress, you hear someone
Correct.
call someone comrade, and all. So which is fair, right? Which is, I think, is the beauty of Congress, right?
Hmm.
That is the beauty of Congress because it truly represents India in that sense.
Correct.
But the point is that in the training, that's why, and that's what I also believe as a politician, that as a political worker, the, that you have to follow your politics and your truth. And I think in our training sessions, that's all that we tell people, that you have to follow your
Hmm.
politics. Of course, then there are these very official things to do where you have to kind of report to somebody and then, report to a line, right? Especially with someone like Rahul Gandhi, who is
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
so like he is very like he's not controlling in that in the sense he believes in more egalitarian way of things. He's more open minded that way.
Right.
So to conversations, etc. And I mean, and this is I'm saying just by observation, right? So it's not that I've directly worked with him. So I'm saying with observation, I'm pretty much here
Hmm.
because of how I think he is, right? So in that sense, I feel that it gives you that
Hmm. Hmm.
room to if you follow your own politics, you have a better way, a better chance of living, staying in politics, because politics is very, very uncertain. Like that one person shift.
Hmm.
Ha, follow
So
your
this,
own.
what do you mean by
No,
follow
one
your
is
own
your value
politics? Like,
system,
is
your
it
own
like
value system.
certain belief systems that you have?
And the second thing is that what is your politics?
Okay.
Is your what is your ground politics, right? So you first fix that,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Which cohort are you going to work for?
Hmm.
Start
Hmm.
outside your
Hmm.
house and
Start
become,
out.
because no
Start
one can
just
take
outside
that
your
away
house
from you. They
before
can
you
take
go
position.
national.
If you say that I am here for a position in the party, that can be taken away
Hmm.
any day. If you say that I'm here for one of the
Hmm. Hmm.
leaders, that leader might, something might happen to that leader and the leader is gone and everything changes overnight. You come and say
Hmm.
I'm here because my party is in power. The power will go away. But your politics on ground, and no one can take it from you. Of course, there'll be ups and downs and there'll be
Hmm.
challenges, yes. But frankly speaking, if you say that I represent these people here,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
People can't take that away from you. You might always be in opposition also in that area, but you that also no one can take away from you. That you are the opposition in that area, right? So the point is that is your point and
Hmm.
your
Hmm.
set of values. That's why I feel what Congress is basically, and why that system works for me, is that we are individual politicians and political workers. We come together on common issues and common
Hmm.
agendas, and when we don't want, we part ways also. And that in this very modern world of where everything aligns
Hmm.
to a
Hmm.
central this thing, right? People find it very odd saying that आपके पार्टी
Right.
में तो लोग दो अलग अलग चीज बोलते हैं, right? And the fact that nobody is listening to the leader, right?
Hmm.
So if somebody wanted to go for, nobody has stopped
Correct.
anyone to go to the Ram Mandir in Congress. Nobody has stopped. So some people go, then some people say that look how
Hmm.
great
Hmm.
it is. But some people also say that but they are not listening to their bosses. Although no boss has ever told that don't go to Ram Mandir, right? So I remember people who have been given ticket who have felicitated car
Correct.
sevaks and all who went and did the Babri Masjid this thing. There are people who have been given ticket from Congress who have done that.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
so there is no this thing saying that that Katharpan and all that is not there. So one thing that can happen is to be
Hmm.
detached
Hmm.
and attached at the same. And I think a lot of these trainings teach
Hmm.
that, which is of course you're part of a whole. So respect the whole, but also respect you yourself, because as a part you are
Hmm.
also whole by yourself, right? So respect that. So to remain in that dual world, is
Hmm.
very very
Hmm.
important to kind of have some survival.
Hmm. Also, it's more important when you are part of the electoral, because you are going to be the face of, like, you're going to be drawing in
Yes, yes.
a few thousand million people around you, and by that nature you are going to
Yeah,
contribute to the larger purpose of where it is. So
regardless of
the
who you are.
and people are going to be
Yeah,
following you regardless of the, yeah. And also, it's not even the politics that
exactly.
you are
So that's the
following,
only
right?
power
It's,
in
I
politics
believe in
for a
you.
politician. Sorry
uh,
to cut
uh,
you there. What is the
and
one single most
hmm,
powerful thing of a politician, right? And I define it as saying that if tomorrow you tell somebody that
hmm,
come here, okay, everyone please come here. How many people come there? Is your power in politics. Is your power to mobilize people. And
right.
that is why BJP cannot get over Rahul Gandhi, because if Rahul Gandhi
Hmm,
tells
hmm.
tomorrow, come here, lakhs and lakhs and lakhs and lakhs of people will come. And you don't have to even pay them,
People will go.
right? And that is why he remains a national leader. So no matter how many
Hmm,
people question,
hmm,
how many people question Rahul Gandhi again and again and again and again,
hmm.
fact that, you know, he will call people saying that come here, that many people will come. He will say register here, so many people will register. And it's not just blind faith. There is a
Right.
genuine trust that people have, because probably they share values with him. And that's all it is. They share the values, and he is very openly showing his values.
Hmm,
So is the
hmm.
other person, other party person showing his values. And some people are choosing these values, right? So he is the alternative, and he is the
Correct.
true
Correct.
alternative
So,
in that sense. Hmm.
correct. But I'm saying like the idea of organizational politics for, let's say, a grassroots politician, is that is that being replicated at a very
Sorry,
different scale for for Rahul Gandhi himself? Like, what kind
I
of
think
training
life has
programs would
taken
he
him
have to
through a
go
lot
through,
of
or what
training
is the kind
programs
of
since he was a child.
uh,
So see, this training also, that's why I say that, not every politician
yeah,
needs training. There are amazing politicians who have not gone through training programs. For example, the people who run
mm,
this program have not gone through a Sangam
were
program.
born.
Like, they are the ones who created this, but probably they have gone through some other types of exposure,
Mm,
exposure run training. And yeah, of course, they
correct.
also have their mentors and everything, I'm sure. But the point is, their training might have had one-on-one to a politician, like how we are trying to do through Manmohan Singh Fellowship, right? Fellows program, which is through a mentor, right? So it might have
Mm,
happened through a mentor and not through these very structured training
mm,
programs, right? But that's how it happens. Politics, the training happens through life,
correct. Correct.
right? While you are on the job, and that's where your
Mm,
training
mm,
actually happens. So it's very important to see who you have to join, who you join. In that way, I absolutely lucked out. I kind of started my political
mm,
journey with like the most amazing bunch of people. So that is where it ends. So that's
mm,
it. So
mm,
there is no Rahul Gandhi
mm,
wants a training karna chahiye. Because, but he understands, because this is another way how he keeps himself in touch with people. Because if you see, firstly, I would say that anybody who wants to know what Congress is doing, please follow the Congress handles and Congress Rahul Gandhi, because otherwise you will never know what he's doing, right? Because no media is going to cover it, right? So
mm,
first you have to
mm,
follow him,
correct.
and then
Correct.
when you will see that he actually goes on ground, right? And he actually goes and meets people
Mm,
regularly,
mm,
right? In that sense, and most importantly,
mm,
he
mm,
is an empathetic person. So he kind of, it's very natural for him to get drawn towards people, and people from all strata, and he doesn't carry those judgments. He doesn't have any of those ye dusra
mm,
main ye. He's very in that sense, and that I think Bharat Jodo Yatra should have settled for everyone, that he's that way.
right.
And he is whatever he is, what he shows he
Mm,
is. There
mm,
is no other. You see him on camera, you see him in person. He's the same person actually. The
correct.
way he
Correct.
behaves and approaches. So in that sense, and I'm saying this again as an
Mm,
observer. I'm not saying this as a person who has worked with him directly, right?
correct. Correct. The other a slightly tangent question, but uh, you know how the Aam Aadmi Party came to power, which is they started as that activist opposing certain things. It's almost like the ideal route that you would want politics to go, right? And how do you see that as as a system, right? So like for somebody, like, there are lots of people who've created a party just because they wanted to get into power, right, for example. But this seems to be the right way to do it, right? You stood for a cause, and you went behind it, and then you got power, and then you went. But it is, I'm not following that too much as what's happening in the Delhi this thing. But there was a lot of great news that was happening around what he was doing and what he's done to Delhi, and how he's changed and stuff and all. But again, obviously there's going to be flack also, right? But how is that model compared to, it's a completely new baby done in a very similar route, which is a grassroots activist kind of a thing coming into power. So what is there some learnings that you guys have seen from there, that
See,
you can
considering that
like almost
that
like a
model
playbook
has
that you could
failed
use?
like in less than 10 years, I mean there is very little to learn from it actually. And if we want to learn,
Hmm. Hmm.
we have better examples from our freedom struggle to how the in our own in Congress
In your
itself,
own
right from people like Congress is the one who got midday meal. Congress is
hmm.
the one who got Narega, Manrega. Congress is the one who got right to
Correct.
information, right to act. Matlab, I mean, amazing. Then the way Maharashtra was run, the way
Hmm.
Delhi was run by Sheila Dikshit. Why do you have to go far from this, right? Sheila Dikshit was there. So in
Sheila
Delhi
Dikshit,
itself, we
correct.
have better examples. But the thing with, I'll come
Hmm.
back to AAP. It's not something to discredit, though, right? Because they did make some waves, and most importantly,
Hmm.
why we
Hmm.
should respect at least and at least
Waves,
think
yeah.
about it is because some people of this country believed in that way of working, right? And we must respect those people. right?
Hmm.
And their children.
Hmm.
So what was it? What was basically everyone was done with corruption, and everyone was done with being apathetic also, and they wanted to take charge. So while we are seeing apathy now, there was also in
Correct.
the second UPA where apathy was fully settled, right? So they were done with it, and suddenly
It's
came
always
this
been there.
whole
Yeah.
Anna Hazare thing and this anti-corruption thing, and it was run by, I guess, someone, an ex-IS
Hmm.
officer who is Arvind Kejriwal, right? Who was also in the RTE movement, the Right to Education wala.
Hmm.
He was involved in that, and hence the first thing that he did was schools, right?
Education. Yeah.
And Mohalla clinic, etc. So that is what he did. So, but the
Hmm.
point is
Correct.
that so when they did, now again you said that, say that it was very grassroots. Only Anna Hazare, everyone else was Baba Ramdev,
Hmm.
that Kavi guy
Hmm.
who immediately
Hmm.
left him. Then
Mainstream
there
kind of
was
thing.
Kiran
Yeah.
Bedi. Then there was some ex-colonel who colonel, they left.
Hmm.
Matlab they all
Hmm.
joined BJP.
Who
They
also
didn't leave
left.
anywhere. They went to BJP, right? And they were from BJP only, and they went back to
Correct.
BJP basically, right? So, so where is the civil
Correct.
this thing? Actually, civil society must have joined them, and a lot of citizens also joined them because they were seeing hope in them. But where there was Yogendra Yadav
Hmm.
SF, but he also left, right? But where were the scores of civil society people?
Hmm.
Particularly
Hmm.
certain socialists. So there are multiple streams in Indian politics, right? So there are Sarvodayis, right?
Hmm.
Then there are who basically Vinoba
Hmm.
Bhave and all those people who believe the upliftment of everyone, etc. Right? Then there is left wing. Then there is right wing, right?
Okay.
And then there is Ambedkarites, and then there are
Hmm.
what you call so-called socialists,
Hmm.
right? And those
Hmm.
socialists are
Hmm.
basically who said that we are anti-Congress, we are anti-BJP also, right? So a lot of them
Correct. Yeah.
kind of backed up as well at that time because it looked like a very good third front, right? But India has
Hmm.
proven again
Hmm.
and again that third front kabhi kaam nahi karta, right?
Correct.
So this was also another experiment in third front. Remember third front in the late 90s that had happened,
Hmm.
right? Where Devegowda and all had come into, right? That also didn't work for long, right? So this
Correct.
in many
Correct.
ways, but this was an experiment that I guess the country was ready to make, and it did it. But again, they were very good
Hmm.
when they were
Hmm.
out of power and when they were challenging the establishment. When they themselves became an establishment, in recent elections in
Hmm.
Gujarat, they had started saying, I'll also send you to some yatra. You know, they did not speak about Bilkis Bano at all in Gujarat. Can you imagine? Because they
Correct.
thought that it will not win them votes. So they were very
Hmm. Hmm.
selective in their politics in that sense, and they were very strategic
Hmm.
versus actually going by values. They showed a lot of great values, but during the election, and what was their reason? They said, "Oh, but
Correct.
people
Correct.
only want to go to yatra, so we'll give them yatra tickets." But you are a party and you have a set of values. You have to live by your values. I'm not saying that
Hmm.
don't do
Hmm.
religious stuff. Everyone goes to temples. All party leaders go to temples. But making it the core of your
Correct.
party manifesto, I mean, that is something else, right? When people are asking
Hmm.
for roads
Hmm.
and water and everything, funny, right? So then people started seeing the whole that this is just a facade and behind there is very little, right? And then like a card of house of
Hmm.
cards, it
Hmm.
just crumbled like very quickly. And now
Correct.
they were making some inroads in Goa. They are not there. Bombay, Maharashtra, they are not there. Punjab, they have their government, of course, but yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. But it again coming back to Congress per se, right? And for some of the campaigns that you've looked at, again, I'm coming back to advertising also, right? So, uh, uh, if you take SBI, the bank, and you know how they had all the good things going for them, and then the whole campaign on surprisingly SBI, which is, you there's so many things that is good for the bank, but you never knew about it. It's
I
all that
know,
seems to be a very
I
true
know.
narrative with the Congress also, right? There's so many great stories that are existing in the party itself, that they have the ones who've launched, but
Yeah,
nobody seems to be want to talk about it. And they said, it's most of the time that what happens in big organizations, that great stories are the small stories that everybody wants to ignore or doesn't make a big deal out of it,
yes,
right?
yes.
But
I
isn't that
agree,
something
and
that needs to be
I
seeped out
agree,
to
and
the
I've
people?
been like living with this idea for a while now because I know that Congress is run by the everyday Congress हो. Okay, I can say that now after looking at the party from inside. The Congress is run by the everyday party, right? And there are some amazing work, like that people are doing. And I have been lucky to witness these people in all these training programs as well. People who apply for these programs, they come there, and when they say the work that they are doing, and it's just so amazing. And then there are some seniors also who are doing some really good work, right? There are some state departments. There are actually states who have done a couple of policies which are very,
Right.
very good. But the point is that that is what it is. The communication, I take that communication, looking it from a branding. Currently, what's happening is it's being looked from a point of view of, say, how a spokesperson would see it or a journalist would see it, which is what आज का बाद खत्म. आज एक बॉल आया, उस पे मैंने सिक्सर मारा. आज एक बॉल आया, मैं आउट हूँ. And कल अलग
Correct.
फील्ड लगेगा, अलग ही होगा. But that is not how brand building
Yeah.
happens, right? And we know that. And that's not how narratives are set. We know that, right? From advertising, right? It's a
Yeah.
long-term game, and it can only happen with these micro stories
Correct.
and the stories behind the scene, right? And that's how people trust it. And all your small, small, small everyday success stories, right? So I am very much this thing, but I don't handle communication. Yeah. No, so I'm saying that, yeah, so जिस दिन मिलेगा उस दिन करेगा.
Nice leg glance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct,
Yeah, of
correct.
course.
But damn good, man. So thanks a lot, Pallavi.
Yeah,
There's
no,
so
thanks.
much more
Yeah,
that we can talk about, but I don't
yeah.
think we have enough time. But maybe we'll come back again. But just before going, if people are wanting, like, I'm sure there is a complete need for people to be a little more active in regards like this. So if people were to want to participate, which is the one place that you would want to guide them to? Like, then we can put up the link
I
on
would say
in
that,
the show notes
both
or in
these,
some
Sangam, Sarvodaya Sangam. And I would say for professionals, particularly this Manmohan Singh
okay,
Fellows, I feel that it's a great way to kind
the
of
Mahan
get into
Mohan
it. And if
Fellowship.
not anything, follow All India Professional Congress handle or the Sarvodaya Sangam handle. So at least they will know what's happening, right? And then through those, there are always continuous calls happening saying that come for
Right,
this, come for
right.
that. There is this program happening here, program there. So people can then be updated on what's happening. Particularly for professionals, All India Professional Congress is something to watch out for.
And how?
Because of the several campaigns that I know are underway, which are like very, 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 very issue based for professionals, and professionals from all walks of life will be interested in that.
Right. And the other thing that you also spoke about, which is, follow your politics, which is the one that's happening outside your door. How does somebody become a little more active to that when maybe those channels are not as active as the ones that you're just talking about, which is slightly more national in scale? Like, how can I get information of what my party is doing outside my house if they are not being as socially active,
Sadly,
or
there's no
on
way. I'm
social
telling. I'm
media or
sorry.
on other
Like
aspects?
I don't know any other way, because the thing is that unless they put out the news, there is no way you'll receive it, right? Because they are not, if they're not putting out on social media, trust me, politicians are not
Correct,
putting it out
correct.
anywhere. They're not even telling their family. Because social media, everybody is taken by this saying, I should have a social media handle, I have to post it. So if they're not posting it there itself, then, but what I would say is that firstly, find out who your MLA is, find out who your MP is, find out who are their oppositions as
Correct.
well, right? Because they could become someday this way. Find out, which your ward is. Find out all these things. You find out the civics. Remember the civics subject that we had, which we said that ये तो scoring subject है. History के साथ आता
Correct,
है.
correct.
30 marks इसमें मिल जाएगा. So that I think to brush up on that, and to know this, and then to follow their pages, right? Both from all parties, right? Follow them, and at least the state pages, if you can follow. So then you will know what they are doing in that state, right?
Okay.
And follow all parties in your state, so that you can have a comparison between them, right? And you will know what they are talking about, what are they doing. Remember that some
Yeah.
parties have more money, right? Because that is another thing. Okay, it's not about just saying that communication karna hai. It's like you need lots of money for communication. You need big setups and big
Correct. Correct.
like people pool to do that, right? So
Mm, mm.
which donor
That
list?
donor list was a joke in the newspaper.
Yeah,
The amount of donations
yeah.
that
My
came
goodness. And
in
then,
for well, my
and yes, so
goodness,
this is
two
yeah,
thousand
yeah.
three hundred
This is,
crores
but also
as opposed to
this is the disclosed one,
some abysmal amount with the
you know.
Congress.
And Congress is a good
Yeah,
boy party. उसने disclose कर दिया उसके पास कितना है. Okay, even if they would have hidden something, it would be very little, you know.
yeah.
उन लोग कितना किया होगा, who knows, right? And
Oh my God, yeah. But you can understand
yeah,
where
and you know,
that money is getting and where
it's
that
all
money
out
is
in the
going
open. We
and
all know who has the money, where
where
the
the
money is
lobbying is
going, who's
happening.
getting the contracts, who is making the business out of it, and how the money is coming back. There is an entire Hindenburg report which had come to say कि कैसे वो पैसा कहाँ से जाके पूरे world से आ रहा है. So there is nothing that is hidden. Everyone knows exactly where everything is coming and going from. Yeah. And
Correct,
thank
correct.
you for the
But great,
lovely
great. Thanks,
questions.
thanks a
And I
lot,
think the
Pallavi, for
questions were
doing
very
this,
interesting.
and we'll connect again. No, I think it's a very interesting and like I'll tell you sincerely, I get very not disturbed, but I want to stay away from politics because I feel that there's no point in me understanding it also, and I always felt that it's like finance, like until unless you really have to do it, you don't want to do it, you don't want to understand anything about it, and because there's always somebody else taking care of it. It's only when you are have those certain duties and responsibilities. But I think I'm in that stage of life, maybe a little much later in my life, where obviously I have a daughter and I have to figure out the future of her. So maybe when she's 21 years old, I have to yet figure out, do I make a study in India because BJP is in power, or do I send her abroad? Something. So those kind of questions will come in. But I think it's important to have those questions. But I think politics, in the way that it's being discussed in at home, is not done in the right way. But I think it needs to move in the right directions. And
Great, great.
I
I'm
think
happy that
conversations like this
it's
is
done.
really, really helpful.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thank you for this. Yeah. Bye.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thanks a lot. My pleasure. Chalo, bye. Bye.